It's way achrei azman. And again, you're here for another exceptional type of thing that we're going to learn a fabrengen or part of a fabrengen instead of a sikha, a regular liquid. Even though this looks like a built-in mugi, but really this is a mugi de sikha that's printed in the back of the sikhas, and this is from the Rebbe's first fabrengen as a Rebbe. This right. Yud Shvat Tafshin Aleph. We're not going to learn the whole Fabrengen. We're going to learn from the middle. This is originally printed in the back of Likutei Sichos Chelik Beis. And the Rebbe more or less announces over here, like he's going to announce the mission statement. You know, the Rebbe took on Yud Shvat, became officially the seventh Rebbe of Chabad. Up till then, the Rebbe still fabrengt, but didn't say a mimer, he wasn't yet officially Rebbe. So now the Rebbe said, we're going to make a proclamation, we're going to make a statement, we're going to say something that has to, resonate, and we have to know what we're doing. So we're starting from Tes. Bevoyo America, Amar Rebbe, when the Rebbe is saying, when my father-in-law, when the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America, Tet. Azlos lekarta avid kin musa. When you come to a city, you follow the customs of the city. And the Rebbe was a big fan of using the customs of a particular place, all for Torah mitzvahs. If there's a certain style of doing things in a certain way, the Rebbe wanted that people should do it in that type of way. So I remember the Rebbe once spoke about making fabrengens or something lekavod some particular time. And the Rebbe said, and in every country according to the style of that place. In other words, if they're not used to a fabrengen type of thing, so you do something else. You do workshops, you do a presentation, you do a concert, whatever it is, as long as it's the same result and purpose. It doesn't have to be exactly the way they did it in Lubavitch in 1900. The point is, whatever it takes according to the place. So the style may be different, but the content has to be the same. Kan ba America, oyevim l'shmoya cruz, hatzara, statement. Davar chidush. You'd like to come up with something new and improved. Umatoiv davar hamavil sarayim. You want to hear something shocking. You don't want a rabbi to come up and tell you, we got to do Torah mitzvahs. You got to say something unique. You got to say something new. You got to repackage it in such a way that it's going to be like, wow. So the Rebbe says, whether, I don't know if you need to do it this way, but still in all, since the Gemara says, so now the Rebbe says, here is my statement. Avos Hashem, Avos HaTorah, Avos Yisrael, Kul Echad. I efshel lachalek b'neim, kivin shekul echad ke'etzem echad. B'toyres achsidus, muvim amorish al Baal Shem Tov b'shem Rishonim, ha'etzem kashet ha'toifes b'miktsasoi, at ha'toifes b'kuloi. For example, if I would say, hold on to the edge of the table, it doesn't mean I'm only holding on to the edge of the table, I'm holding on to the entire table. So the same thing, umenidin dedan, in our case, kivin shagimel ha'avos hem etzem echad, muvim, top of the next page, Shebechol echad mehem yesh shloshtam ki keshash toifes b'miktsasei at toifes b'kuloi. And the Rebbe is going to explain what does that mean. What does it mean if I have one of these type of loves, so then I have the rest of these loves. Yesh na avos Hashem aval ein avos HaTorah v'avos Yisrael hareza hara shechaser gam b'avos Hashem. The Rebbe, this is like a very practical thing in America. People say, I love God, but don't ask me to put on tefillin, or don't ask me to love another Yid. Me and God, we get along. We have a loving relationship. So the Rebbe says, if a person truly loves God, he has to love who God loves, which is the Jewish people. He has to love the Torah that Hashem gave.
But if they're all part of the same, so then if you love the Eibusher, then you obviously love the Yid Nosson.
So that is deep down. That in truth, he loves Yid and he loves Torah. But if he tries to divide it and he tries to cut and make a separation between them, so then, like the Rebbe says, that shows that despite his declarations that he loves Hashem, it means that he's missing. On the other hand, it makes sense. So here's a very interesting point, that this is the means, this is a stepping stone. How do I reach a level of Avos HaTorah? How do I reach Avos Hashem? Through Avos Yisrael. Says that Tzemach Tzedek used to have visions, revelations of his grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, even after the Alter Rebbe passed away. And one time, the Tzemach Tzedek didn't have these private revelations of Alter Rebbe to him after a few weeks, and he was very upset about it, etc. And it came one time before davening, and someone asked him for a loan. He was, I believe, a butcher, and he needed to buy animals from the marketplace so he'd be able to have them slaughtered and he'd be able to have meat to sell. But Tzemach Tzedek was then before davening, and he didn't want to disrupt the schedule of davening and so on, and go ahead and find the money, give this person a loan or whatever. Then he thought to himself, this person needs to go to the marketplace early in the morning. He can't wait with this loan, with this money until later on. He needs to have the money now. So instead of dealing with his own davening and his own spiritual level, he stopped himself. He got the money together. I think he went running looking for this butcher, and he gave him the money. After that, the Alter Rebbe, who hadn't appeared to him in many weeks, appeared to him. You'll forgive me if I didn't get every detail in the story right. The point is that his Avos Yisrael led to a greater spiritual level because of it. It added in his Torah and his Avodah because of this connection that he now had, this vision that he had now with Alter Rebbe. Hatzorah, statement zu, tzrichim lahachliz ulahidia, kasher royim Yehudi, sheyesh lo avos Hashem, ve'ein lo avos HaTorah v'avos Yisrael, tzrichim loymar lo, she'olav ladas, she'avos Hashem levado, le'loi avos HaTorah v'Yisrael, ein lo kiyum. It needs to have avos Yisrael, it needs to have avos HaTorah, to have a good foundation to be lasting. You can't stop over there and say, well, he has Avos Yisrael. Isn't that Kol HaTorah Kula? Tzrichim l'shtadol l'haviyah la'avos HaTorah v'avos Hashem. V'chein tzrichim l'shtadol she'pulose b'avos Yisrael tizbate loirak min esinas lechem l'reivim amayim l'tzmeim. When a person has Avos Yisrael, it could mean, okay, I love this other Yid, but my love is going to be for things that he needs in the physical realm. He needs food. He needs to drink. I'll give him food. I'll give him to drink. I'll help him pay his mortgage, etc., etc. I'll give him what he needs begashmis. But Elish mitzad Avos Yisrael yikarev Yehudim la'avos HaTorah v'avos Hashem. And that the Rebbe concludes. The pasuk in Kehela says that a rope that's made up of 3 strands, it won't easily tear. So when I only have one of these loves, it's not strong enough. When I have all of these 3 things combined, so then it's powerful. Vaydeis atovi gama geula. Shekein kishem sha'asibel golina barzeinu begols ha'achrin beglal ha'hepech d'avos Yisrael. As we know, that the second base of Mikdash was destroyed because of the opposite of Avos Yisrael. So the way to undo that and to bring the geula, kachai de Avos Yisrael, tov ve'agula b'meiru emeinu mamish. So it's interesting that the main foundation of what the Rebbe is talking about over here is Avos Yisrael, and then with that foundation, okay, now let's bring in Avos HaTorah and Avos Hashem, which is interesting based on what you were asking, because in the beginning of the Sikha, it's like when he says Avos Hashem, he doesn't just say, well, build on that and bring to Avos Yisrael. The Rebbe's approach is, you take Avos Yisrael first, and then from there you build an Avos HaTorah, an Avos Hashem, and it includes in it, and then you're going to have Chutam Shul Shmeir Lo Yinatik. And B'Pashtus, we see this in davening, that davening begins with Hareinu Mekabelai Mitzvah Safter Shvafter HaChamoicha. Before we even begin davening, which davening is about our connection to Hashem, Avos Hashem. Still and all, before we can even go there, first we have to start off with Avos Yisrael. And this is actually fits in with a lot of the theme that the Rebbe was talking about earlier in the Farbrengen. Earlier in that Farbrengen, the Rebbe was talking about the idea that everybody has a mission from going back to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Everybody has a mission to go have this reaching out to another Yid, connecting with another Yid, bringing another Yid closer to Yiddishkeit. So this, about what he's talking about, Avos Yisrael, and Avos Hashem, and Avos HaTorah, is a continuation of what's going on before. I mentioned this to somebody a few days ago. Now we take for granted, it's a given, that we reach out to other Yid. When it comes to Yiddishkeit, whether or not they look like us, they act like us, it's taken for granted. In the 50s, in 1951, what the Rebbe was introducing over here was a totally literal. The Rebbe said, "This is the first Farbrengen of the Rebbe as Rebbe." And he said there was other Farbrengens also, but as Rebbe, this is the first Farbrengen. And the idea of reaching out to every single Yid, regardless if your job is a rabbi, if your job is a businessman, which is part of what the Rebbe speaks earlier, to reach out to every Yid. It was a very closed-minded approach to things then in 1951. It was always like, we got to protect our own. We got to make sure, especially, there wasn't such a big from a community, and they felt a little bit overwhelmed in America and so on. So let's protect our own. There was very much a ghetto mentality. We got to build a castle around ourselves and protect ourselves. So the Rebbe said, "B'shum oifen loy." And then eventually, after many years of the Rebbe pushing this through, so even in the world it became an accepted thing. You got to reach out to other Yidden also, even if they don't dress like us, even if they don't act like us, and so on.
Not necessarily that they do it mitzvah Yisrael, maybe. Could be
Who's they? You're talking about B'chlal, Kiruv.
Meaning, which is interesting, it could be it's Avos Hashem thing, or Avos HaTorah thing, actually.
And therefore,
and that's the Kiruv is Avos HaTorah.
I hear.
Really an Avos Yisrael thing.
I hear. But L'Poil, the Rebbe wants, whichever way possible, Hamaisu or Yikir, L'Poil, you're taking care of another Yid, that's what makes the difference. And then the Rebbe, over here, in the early years of the Rebbe's Farbrengens, people used to often interrupt or interject with questions. We didn't see this. Even Rababa never saw this. He was in 770, even before me. Whatever, we're around the same years in 770. Nobody, interrupted the Rebbe in Farbrengen. Sometimes between sichos, not sometimes, a lot of times between sichos, a chash of a person went over to the Rebbe, if he was a big Rav or whatever, went over to the Rebbe to discuss certain things. But to interrupt, this was and it was it was more informal. And that was the way it was. Even you see this by the Frierdiker Rebbe's Farbrengens, by the Rebbe Rashab's Farbrengens in Torah Shalom and Sefer HaSichos, the Frierdiker Rebbe. There was sometimes like a give and take by the Farbrengens. By the Rebbe's Farbrengens, it turned into something totally different. But in the early years, or especially mamish in the beginning, people used to ask questions. So someone asked over there about a particular thing that the Frierdiker Rebbe gave him to do, a particular shlichus or whatever. So the Rebbe says, skip the parentheses. He became 15 years old. 15 years old. The Frierdiker Rebbe at 15, can you imagine? We look at 15-year-olds these days. Those days, 15-year-olds were mature enough. Obviously, the Frierdiker Rebbe was something unique, but still, he was mature enough that the Rebbe Rashab took him to help him with work, with matters having to do, literally, like we'll soon see, going to Russian government officials and so on.
He got married at 15.
He got married in Tafresh Nun Zayin. He was born Tafresh Mem. No, that was 17. The Chasana was when? Yeah, the Siyasa Stevkatvim and the Chasana went together. Yeah. Huh? No, you're mixing it up with someone else.
Dmozakan, I think, was 15.
Also, the Hillel Parcher was earlier. Someone else was 15. Yeah. But Frierdiker Rebbe, Tafresh Mem was when he was born, and Tafresh Nun Zayin, time is Yastas. It was in the Sheva Brachs. Yeah.
But he was born Thomas?
He was born Tafresh Mem, so 16? So it was 16 and a half.
16.
Okay. La Sifas Harabanim Siyames, Shiskaima Oz, Kimedum Bekavna. In the city of Kavna, there was a gathering of Rabbanim. So again, this is this 15-year-old. And here you have a whole bunch of Rabbanim coming together. Shalach Admur Nishnaseidnat Kvayt Kuchas Meirichame Admur B'toyer Nitzig Shaloi. As a representative. Kivin Shah Rebbe Hayaz Zayir Mechamesh Shoshana Shalach Ima Admur Nishnaseidnat Rashbatz. The Rashbatz, Rabbi Shmuel Batzal Sheftel, was a chassid of, still going back, a chassid of Tzemach Tzedek. He became a chassid in the times of Tzemach Tzedek. And he was also, at one time, one of the many malamdim of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So he was already an older chassid. So they sent along a 15-year-old with an older chassid that was probably like, 70 years old or something like that. Somewhere like somebody with a longer voice aboard. Harashbat ha-Yehudi pikech ma'oid. Aber Admur nicht sein Zivo Leimer. Shalom Roish Shalech Oisoi Imoi. Olav Ladas Shekechol Sheyimayit Milis Arev Odev Yoiser Vezayin Als Gleichen. In other words, it seems to be like this. The Frierdiker Rebbe sent along this older chassid for appearance sake. Maybe that it wouldn't look respectful that here he's sending to a meeting of Rabbanim a 15-year-old kid. So he had to send someone that looked the part, but he was there just like for show. He said, the least you get involved, the least you mix in, I trust my son. Let him run the show.
But Rashbas wasn't just standing out there.
Exactly.
He was a teacher of the...
That's a teacher of the Frierdiker Rebbe.
And from when he was little.
Yeah.
And maybe was Rebbe before him.
He was a teacher of the Rashab, you saying? I don't remember. But he goes back all the way to the generation of Tzemach Tzedek. He became a chassid. Yeah. So he wasn't just a katlakanya. He wasn't just somebody to dismiss. And then the Rebbe concludes, when he was talking to this guy that was asking about something that the Frierdiker Rebbe told him to do, V'im ozkach, if then it was so that the least somebody mixes themselves in to the Frierdiker Rebbe's business when he was 15 years old, before the Frierdiker Rebbe was Rebbe, the least you mixed in to the Frierdiker Rebbe's business, the better. Kol shkein ato. Obviously, this guy had different opinions about what to do and what not to do. Ein tzorech losses loy eitzes v'loy loy mardeis tzrichim lakayim alamalo es rtzoynei v'kecholtes l'tzmayit ha'is arvus im eigene perushim adif yoyser. So here in Yud Aleph he describes a very interesting thing. The Rebbe's first mimer is known as Basir Lagani. It's a mimer that analyzes the first ois, the first chapter of the previous Rebbe's mimer that he gave out before he passed away, the year before in Tavshin Yud. But there was a very interesting way how the Rebbe said the Maimer. The Rebbe, would say, and this went on for all the years that the Rebbe commented on Basar Lagani. He would say a bit of the Maimer, repeat it word for word, and then explain it. In this particular year, a Maimer was always said in one go, in one shot. However long a Maimer took. Some Amarim could take 15 minutes, some Amarim could take an hour, some Amarim could take 7 minutes, whatever. That Maimer, Basar Lagani Tavshin Yud Aleph, the Rebbe broke up into different parts. Let's see it inside. Terem Pasach Maimer Amar. He started off by introducing it. And then the Rebbe said the Maimer that we have of the Rebbe from Tavshin Yud Aleph Ad Seif Siv Gimel. And then he did a thing, like I said, was not done by any other Maimarim. Afterwards, he interrupted in the middle of saying his own Maimer, and he said they should sing the Beinani. V'Omar, and he said, the Frierdiker Rebbe had a special place in his heart for this niggin called the Beinani, and by the Rebbe, there were certain times of the year where the Rebbe told to sing the different nigunim of the Rabbeim. The Beinani niggin was the niggin they sang when they wanted to sing a niggin of the Frierdiker Rebbe. After singing a niggin of the Beinani, he said to sing a niggin of the Rebbe Rashab. Afterwards, he continued in that Maimer from Tavshin Yud Aleph. And he started saying from the part that says, V'hinei achrei shemevayer ba'maimer di'ikut shechina b'tachtonim moisa, ad soif sifhei of that Maimer. Now again he interrupted. Achar kach hifsek v'tzivol anagin nigun mekvoitus admar marash, v'achar kach nigun mekvoitus admar tzamach tzedek. Again, the Rebbe is working his way up. He's going from the Frierdiker Rebbe, Rebbe Rashab, then he's singing a nigun of the Rebbe Marash, he's singing a nigun of the Tzamach Tzedek. Achar kach himshach ha-maimer, then he continued again. V'ine besiyim ha-maimer mevayer ad gemira. By the way, during the Maimer, there were different times when the Rebbe broke into tears. There's actually a recording of the Maimer. You could listen to it online. Achrei amiras ha-Maimer ubehefsek chelik hasicha the lekhamon nig tzivol anagin nigun koitus admar amtzoi v'nigun koitus admar azokin ben adalet babes kidlalon. So after the Maimer, the Rebbe said the next sicha, and then afterwards he went on further up. He did the Nigunim of the Rebbe Marash and the Tzamach Tzedek. So the next two that was left was a Nigun of the Mittler Rebbe and the Alter Rebbe. This also connects with the fact that in all the Mamarim of Basar Lagani, the Rebbe would always bring in something and incorporate in the Maimer something from all the Rabbeim. Because he said that the Frierdiker Rebbe said that by a wedding, by some people they come till 3 generations, by us they come up all till 7 generations, and therefore the Rebbe would incorporate in the Maimer all 7 generations, but not only the teachings of 7 generations, but also, like we see in this case, he incorporated the Nigunim of all the 7 generations. Later on, the Rebbe said a Maimer a few days later on Yud Gimel Shvat, where he also brought in the Baal Shem Tov and the Mezritcher Magid, and he explained he really wanted to bring in the Baal Shem Tov Mezritcher Magid, but he felt he didn't want to do differently what the Frierdiker Rebbe said, so he's making up for it later. But in the next years, he always brought in the Maimer Basar Lagani, always from all the Rabbeim, starting from Baal Shem Tov going down. Okay, Yud Beis. Achrei Maimer Amar Kvoitus Admar Shlita Ke'eis Hakshivu Yehudim Herzchaim Yidden, the Rebbe said. Bechlal bechabad hoisa atvir shetia avedosish kol echad ve'echad ba'atzmoi v'loi li'istamech al rabbeim. The Rebbe, once he said the Maimer, that was the official time when the Rebbe officially took on the mantle of Chabad leadership. Until the Maimer was said, no one knew for sure, because the Rebbe verbringt all the time, and any chassid can verbring. But saying a mimer, that's something unique to the Rebbe. To such a degree that there was a chassid that got up and said, Shechiyanu, and said, Baruch Hashem, we have a Rebbe, and so on and so forth. So the Rebbe said, okay, I took this on. I'm going to be Rebbe. But don't think that now you can just dump everything on me and you can go ahead and go to sleep. Here's what the Rebbe says, right after the Maimer. Before they even said a niggun, right after the Maimer he said, first of all, Chabad never relied on the Rabbeim. Zau hafresh ben shittas Poland and shittas Chabad, between Chassidus of Poland and Chassidus of Chabad. Shittas Poland ni v'tzadik b'menasa yichya. Al tikre yichya haches b'shva el yichaya haches b'pasach. In other words, the tzaddik is the one, the Rebbe, you go to the Rebbe inspires you, the Rebbe gives you your avodah, the Rebbe does everything for you, you just have to connect yourself to the Rebbe. But it's not about my working on myself. Avul onu Chabad, tzrichim lavit kolonu batzmeinu, baramach evorim v'shasag yidim shalaguf, ubaramach evorim v'shasag yidim shalasham. Chassidus teaches that just like the physical body has many limbs and organs and many veins and sinews and so on, corresponding to that, the neshama is also made up of all these parts. And with every part of our being, we have to serve the Eibishter. Whether it's a part of our body or it's a part of our neshama, no part of it has to be left out. The Rebbe, not a lot of times, but I remember once the Rebbe said, a person can say to themselves, you know what, why do I need to, break my head to learn Chassidus and to understand about godliness and to learn Chassidus Chabad? It's a lot of hard work. I'll serve God in a simple way. Like an ish pashut. I'll have a munah pshuta. I'll believe in Hashem, and that's it. That was enough for my grandparents, was enough for my great-grandparents. What do I got to go ahead and stress my mind out and work hard on understanding and I should have dayas alakei avicha and so on. So the Rebbe says, among many different answers the Rebbe gives for it, when Hashem created a person, He created him with many different faculties, many different capabilities. Ani lo nivreisi al neshama sheskoini. My entire being is only there to serve the Eibishter, which means every part of my being has to be used to serve the Eibishter. If so, if I'm serving Hashem just with a munah or what's called Kabbalah soil, so it comes out that Hashem gave me a brain for nothing, or for seemingly secondary things. Yeah, I'm using my brain to make a living. I'm using my brain for something else. But I'm not using my brain in the service of Hashem. So that's the Rebbe says. Every part of our being has to be devoted to Hashem. Hakel b'dei shamayim chutz me'ir shamayim. Meaning, we all have to do it. And the Rebbe says, when I'm saying this, it doesn't mean I'm saying, you got to do everything and I'm disconnected. Einani mesalik es atzmi. Chzog zich nicht op, chas v'sholem l'sayeh. L'sayeh k'fya yechoylus, the Rebbe says. I'm going to help you out. Avol kivin shakol b'dei shamayim chutz mir shamayim hareim lo tiyah avodah levad ma yoyel zeh shenoisnim ksovim. Ksovim means we're giving out mamorim. Menagdim negunim voimrim l'chayim. In other words, I'm going to say a maimer. I'm going to fabreng. You have yourself a Rebbe. But if the individual person doesn't work with it, it's not going to be getting anything what you have to do. The Rebbe is saying, the Friedrich Rebbe would say from time to time, literally it means don't stick, I don't know why they didn't translate it, birds into your pocket. In other words, don't live in a fantasy land. Don't live in an imaginary world. Tzrichim levad la'afich asashtus to le'umaza v'arasicha der koch shal nefshabamis l'kedusha. The whole entire theme of the Basel Lagani Maimer that Rebbe always talks on Yud Shvat, that's the last Maimer, the Friedrich Rebbe, is about that there is the shtus of klippa, the foolishness of nefshabamis, and it's not enough to defeat or overcome the nefshabamis or to do what we have to do. Despite the nefshabamis, we have to take that shtus, we have to take that passion and that excitement, nefesh habamis, and to take the very same passion and excitement and use it for kedusha. Also, another thing that it speaks about in that Maimer Basel Lagani is about building the Mishkan. Val derech ze ben gele beis am migdash ha yachol lasis David levadi. El shritzoinam haya lezakis is kol bnei Yisrael. So the Rebbe says, it's not like I can't do it for you, but I want all of you to participate. Ukemoi kein. Kasher kvoitus is meir chami adbur kasav as a sefer Torah lekabal shnei Mashiach tzidkeinu. The Friedrich Rebbe wrote a sefer Torah that's called Mashiach Sefer Torah. It's now in 770. But he didn't conclude it in his life. But the Friedrich Rebbe could have taken care of it himself. Amar she'eina roitze lasses ois levade el ritzoyne b'shtatfusam shall call Yisrael k'dei liskus b'davar klal Yisrael. In the end, the Sefer Torah wasn't finished till 20 years after this. In Tov Shin Lamed 1970, it was a Friday afternoon. I don't remember if Friday afternoon was Yud Shvat or that Shabbos was Yud Shvat, but you were there then? No. So this was an amazing type of situation, and the Rebbe said a few days beforehand that they should finish the Sefer Torah and so on. The Rebbe walked into 770 holding the Sefer Torah, and the Rebbe paid to make a silver crown on it. So the first Sefer Torah in 770 that actually I believe had a silver crown on it that I recall. Definitely from the large Sefer Torahs. And it was a very big thing. It was like the last year of the cycle of 20 Mamorim. The Rebbe said on 20 chapters of Basel Lagani, the Rebbe would say every year a Maimer, and that was the end of the cycle. The next year, the Rebbe would begin a new cycle. The Chagav Chassidim thought that this is it. It's the end of the cycle. That means Mashiach is coming, and now with this Mashiach Sefer Torah is being concluded, it's over. We're going straight with this Torah Yisrael. Anyway, Upshite sheba'asiyas hadir lo yizbarach v'tachtoinim tzrichim leishtatev kulanu v'chol b'nei Yisrael. The whole idea in the Basel Lagani Maimer is about how we have to make a home for the Eibush Adani below. Kol echad tzarich lasis ba'atzmoi l'malu yisluchusay. Nishru rak pachim ktanim, like Chassidus explains, that Yaakov Avinu went back at that night when he wrestled with the Malach of Esav. He crossed over there, that river, to just because there were like small jugs that had to be carried over. The same thing it's brought down, that after all the years in Golus, we already did everything we had to do. What's left over is like small little jugs, just some final touches that we, the last generation before Mashiach, has to conclude. Okay, when we conclude that, as Yikuyim Hayiyud v'ol Mashiach goymer b'artziyin l'shpizar Esav. Hainu shegimel klipsat meyis yitchu v'yibotlu v'klipas noiga klal sa'olam tis'alu l'gdusha v'tushlam tach sabriyah shetir dir lo yizbarach v'dachtoinim. And after this, the Rebbe said the next two Nigunim, sang the next two Nigunim in the series, the Middle Rebbe's Nigun and the Nigun Alter Rebbe. Then the Rebbe goes on to what he's spoken of Fabrengen and Yutas Kislev prior to this. Duber Yutas Kislev, she is Sadr Chalukas Mishnayis, Shekol Echad Yika Chamisha Prokim, V'yisaimam Ad Yud Shvat. And the Rebbe says, Bevadai Siyam Ukulam, Valpi Minag Yisrael Loimer Davra Maba Siyam, Oimer Dvar Achadim Valzong HaParverta Bekitzer. The Rebbe is saying it's a custom that when you conclude a Masechta, you conclude Mishnayis, you conclude something, so you say something about this. So the Rebbe said, since everybody surely participated in this project of everybody learning 5 Mishnahs, so since we're making Lawa Siyum on the Mishnayis, I'm going to say something about it. And this is the custom of the Rebbe Bechlal. Every Yud Shvat, I don't remember how Yud Shvat, he says Kislev, Vav Tishrei Chafov, these were the yard sites of his parents. These were times when the Rebbe always made a siyum on Masechta. In this case, he made like a siyum on Mishnayis. Mishnah Kedemes le Mishnah Achroina, in the Mishnah before the final Mishnah of the entire Shisha Sidrei Mishnah, Shaninu we learned, Chalois Dvash, if you have what's called a honeycomb, and in the honeycomb there is honey inside. So there is different halachas of tumah that have to do with if something is considered a food or it's called a drink. So as long as the honey is in the honeycomb and you're eating it, people used to eat the honey with the honeycomb or parts of the honeycomb. I don't know exactly how it was done. So then the honey was still considered food. Concerning different halachas of tumah. When does the honey have a din of a liquid concerning truma? I'm concerning tumah. So there's a machlokes. Chalos dvash me'emasai metamais mishum mashke. When do these have a din of tumah, as in something that's called a drink? Beishamai oimrim mishiyaharer. Beishamai says as soon as he thinks I want to remove the honey and make it something separate from the honeycombs, so then the honey has a halacha of being considered a mashke, a drink. Beis Hillel oimer, it's not enough when you think about it. Mashir Nasik, when you actually break it apart and you open it up to take out the honey, so then the honey has a din of a drink. So the Rebbe says like this: Kloimer, ledas beis Shammai mishtane mamode matzav shel davar b'machshava levado ledas beis Hillel yesh tzorich b'pula. The Rebbe always tries to bring out a positive lesson from everything. So Beis Shammai says it's enough thinking about something. Beis Hillel says thinking is not enough. You got to do. Now we know that when there's a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, we never rule like Beis Shammai. Not only that, if a bezdin rules like Beis Shammai, the law goes back, etc. V'hinei after Beis Shammai v'mokim Beis Hillel eine mishnah. How do you do it? The Arizal says that when Mashiach comes, all those things that we paskin now like Beis Hillel against Beis Shammai, when Mashiach comes, it's going to be turned around. We're going to act like Beis Shammai. We're now, this is also the theme of the Rebbe since Tafshin Yir Aleph. We are all on the road to Geula. We are now there. We're holding just by the Geula. Erev Shabbos, the idea that in the 6,000 years of the world before Mashiach, we're in the 6,000, that's like Friday afternoon, before Shabbos. Shabbos is the time of the Geula. There's the idea that you're supposed to, it says Friday afternoon, you're supposed to taste from the foods of Shabbos. So therefore, since we're like Friday afternoon in regards to Geula, so we already have to taste of Beis Shammai's opinion. Hit imam bedas Beis Shammai, shemachshava levada naver kvar lemaymed matzav nailu yoser. As long as you're thinking, you want to do it, you should already go over to that place. We're in the presence of 10 Yidin, Nakol Be'asar Shchinte Shchari, like the Alter Rebbe brings down in Tanya, that on every 10 Yidin the Shechina is there. So how much more powerful is the Shechina's presence when we have many times 10? Especially in a shul and the yeshiva, 770 doubled as both. It was both a shul and a place of learning. And the Rebbe says, Ki yedua sheyesh ma'ila beis haknesses l'gav beis hamedrash l'gav beis haknesses. Each one has an advantage and a quality that the other one doesn't have. A shul has a certain thing and a yeshiva has a certain thing. So you have multiple yidden in the number of 10. You have the location is a shul and a yeshiva. And also, b'yeser seis or b'yeser ois, even more so, b'dalda moisav shal Rebbe, where the Frierdiker Rebbe was. Ba'amakim sheboichai kama v'kama shonim, u'boi hispal v'lamad. Oimid kol echad v'echad b'yisoiris. Shemayoim v'hala tia hanagosi k'deboi l'mever, that it should be the way it's supposed to be. V'kivim shohelchem l'kras la'osid lover, like we said before, Azai halacha Beis Shammai shemachshava levada mavira l'mayim d'matzav acher. Just like when a person thinks that I'm going to use this honey as a liquid, that automatically makes the halacha of this honey like a liquid. The same thing, as long as I think about becoming better, that already brings me over it. That already helps me become better. V'tia yitzia min ha'meitzar el ha'merchav. Then the Rebbe concludes, this was the second to last Mishnah in the entire Mishnayos. Now he's going to go into the actual last Mishnah, B'siyam HaMishnayis, it says, Le'motza HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kli Machzik Brach L'Yisrael Allah HaSholim. U'kamay Sha'anu Ha'imrim, Barcheinu Avinu Kulanu Ke'echad. The famous Pirush, that when is there the Barcheinu Avinu? When it's Kulanu Ke'echad. Because when there's Kulanu Ke'echad, then you can have the Barcheinu Avinu. Ha'idei HaSholim Mesirim Kol Alamis Ha'asteirim V'Agbolis. The Kivin Shemachshava Meyalas, the Frierdiker Rebbe says at the beginning of Likutei Diburim, the power that thought has. Thought has a benefit in and of itself. It can affect things, change things. So again, the Rebbe says, we're not doing anything, we're out of Fabrengen. But just thinking about it, that we are going to be doing things of Shalom, and we want to have Shalom to be the Kli Machzik Bracha, Azai Nasis Hayitzia Ma'amaymed U'Matzev, the Arvin. So the Rebbe would always try to, by Siyumim, connect the end with the beginning. The beginning of the entire Mishnayos is in Mesechtes Brachos. Me'emes HaKoynes HaShma Ba'arvin. And then Me'emes HaKoynes HaShma Ba'Shachris. So the Rebbe says, Erev, Arvin shows on nighttime. Nighttime shows on darkness and hiddenness and concealment and so on. So instead of it being a state of Arvin, of nighttime, of evening, what does that mean? That the person that's in a spiritually dark place not always recognizes or is willing to think about Hashem Echad. So what does the beginning of Mishnah say? That even when it's Arvin, even when it's dark, even when I don't see godliness, even when I'm not spiritually aware and inspired, even then I proclaim Havaya Echad. So that is the way things are at the beginning of Mishnayos. But through the end of the Mishnayos that we just now finished, that we have the Shalom, we have peace, that's the Kli, that's Masik Bracha, Al Shaidei Shalom Tia Bekarav Mamish, Kriyas Shema B'Shachar, which is the second thing that he talks about over there in that first Mishnah of Mesechtes Brachos. V'av sheyesh negam ha'pirush the Shachar Meloshen Shachrus. Shachrus is again dark. It shows on something that's concealment again. It's not Gilui. Harezi yasapech la'pirush the Shachar Meloshen Boiker v'yoyim. V'layla k'yoyim yoyer, which is something that says about Mashiach's times that even the nighttime will be illuminated like day. Arvin Gufa Yoyer, the darkness itself, the night itself, will shine. It'll happen very soon. And then, so before he did the niggin in the middle of Rebbe, now they did the niggin of the Alter Rebbe, the Dalet Bavis, which was what they sing under the chuppah. Kishaduber oides kabols in yon nesias ma'avu kveitus adem mashab nishmaseiden bikish is a year bechesed uvarachnu. When there was a conversation about taking over, when the Frierdiker Rebbe had to take over after the passing of the Rebbe Rashab, he asked, but it should be in such a way, or the Rebbe Rashab davened that it should be, I don't remember right now, who said that it should be in a way of kindness and mercy and compassion. Because especially that time when the Frierdiker Rebbe Taka became Rebbe, it's a very difficult time for Jews. This was 1920 in Russia. 1920 in Russia, there was, first of all, the communists that were persecuting the Jews, and then there was like the civil war between the Tsarist forces and the Cossacks, and there was a lot of killing going on of Jews on both sides and so on. The Frierdiker Rebbe said that Mashiach's coming will be in his days. It's not a question. We see that the Frierdiker Rebbe is like not here. The Rebbe says, what does it mean that in his days Mashiach will come? It's spoken about concerning Shimshon, that says even 20 years after Shimshon died, everything was quiet because the Plishtim were still terrified of Am Yisrael, even though the one who brought the terror on them was Shimshon HaGiver. So because he still influenced the world around him, it was considered, according to Rishalmi, the Al Shemaini, as if Shimshon was still there. So the Rebbe says, in a similar vein, because the Frierdiker Rebbe's influence is still here, so therefore it's considered still the generation of the Frierdiker Rebbe. Madua is Akiva Dober. So the Rebbe says, if so, but why did it delay? Why did it take time? Siperli Yehudi b'mechtavi shebishnas tafresh pei gimel shols koikudis meirecham admur advar nesil Italia. He asked about traveling, I guess, to move to Italy, maybe from Russia, from whatever. V'kvoikudis meirecham admur shiva l'chol eis. Everything has its time. In other words, he didn't just say, no, don't do it. But he just said, this is not the time for it. We advise him to learn in Temchet Mimim, which was in wherever the Temchet Mimim that he went to learn in. Only now, when this Yid wrote to the Rebbe, he finally made it to Italy, whenever that was, 20 years later or something. The case of Li, 27 years later, about how everything has its right time. And the Rebbe says the same thing is with anything that seems to be delayed, but about Mashiach, it's leinu lo yimachcha davar shanim chas v'shalom eliyeh b'mehirus. Rak tzrichim rak lahashlam es ha'avodim apachim ktanim tzrichim l'shanis ha'regilus v'hanachas, which is another concept that the Frierdiker Rebbe speaks over there in that Maimer. How a person needs to change their habits and change their attitudes. Then the glory of Hashem will arise and ascend in all the worlds. And then Terem Tzeisei Yomar Ki B'Simcha Teitzeu V'Shalom Tuvalum. And the Rebbe, again, he brings in like many of the themes that the Rebbe would speak about throughout the Nesiyos. He spoke about the Frierdiker Rebbe and Shlichus, like I said, the beginning of the Fabrengen. He spoke about Avos Yisrael. Finally, he brings in Kishatia Simcha Sha'az Yeh B'Meila Shalom Shekol Eila Shemekashanim Al Rebbe Yeh Ba'achtas Azai Kehem Shchakosav Gamahoras V'Agvois. After it says Ki V'Simcha Teitzeu V'Shalom Tuvalun Gamahorim V'Agvois Lo Rak Shelo Ya'akvu El Sheyisayu. Hahorim V'Agvois could also mean powerful individuals, people that could stand in the way. V'chol atze asada, ilon nisrak she'eina moisim peirus, yasu peirus, it says about Mashiach's times. K'may merazal, asidim ilon nisrak she'yasu peirus, that even those trees that don't bear fruit will have fruit. Al shekolzo betnai shviyah shalom, there has to be peace. Shekol ha'shayachim al Rebbe yu ba'achtas, was yazer Hashem yisbarach lahashem skavona, to fulfill and to do what the Rebbe wanted us to do, that is going to be the ultimate good for us. And this is again another message that the Rebbe always writes people and tells people, that when the Rebbe asks us to do something, it's not for his benefit, it's not that we don't gain anything from it. The best favor he can do for us is to ask us to do these things, and when we do it, it turns out the best way for us in the end. L'chaim. This you're talking, you're going to have some mashkin, say some l'chaim on this.